you would please.
Okay.
The only way you could believe what Reverend Moon is teaching as a revelation, not from his own brain or his own discourse within, but from God, is if you pray and if you study that material and then you work it in your life and it works and it achieves the results. What are the results that Reverend Moon is working to achieve in line with God's providence? The three major problems that God faces. The problem of communism, the problem of the breakdown of the family, or the evilness of adulterous love, the sinfulness of selfish love. And thirdly is the fragmentation of the Christian church. Jesus never intended, when he sent his 12 disciples out, for each of those 12 disciples to start 70 or 80 different denominations. Our view is taken from our view of God's providence working today, that Christianity must change. Our heart must repent. We must come together and love one another, as Jesus told in the Great Commandment in John 15. We've got to love each other and bind together and practice the gospel of love as a Christian body, rather than simply maintain our doctrinal, theological differences.
Okay, let's answer
so
the
many
question.
different Christian denominations who claim that they are Christian would take issue with Dr. Martin.
Let's stick with the question, first of all, of the claims of Sun Myung Moon, why we ought to believe in it. Dr. Martin?
Well, exactly the point you just made a moment ago, Tom, arguing for Mr. Moon, is an argument advanced by the Mormon Church. Point by point. Family breakdown, the need for the restoration. Joseph Smith is a prophet of God. The Book of Mormon is a revelation of God. Whose authority are we to accept for this? Joseph Smith. How do you find out? Well, you pray about it just the way you told us to pray about the divine principle. When you talk to the Mormons, they say the Moonies are a cult. So here you have a parallel, if you want your paradigms, there it is, which is identical to what you've got. Who's to tell the truth between the Mormon Church and the Unification Church? Now, the Christian Church says, incidentally, you made reference to my writings and criticism of other people's religious beliefs. I'm a professor of comparative religions. That's my job, is to analyze other people's views. To analyze the views does not mean hostility toward the people. I love you for Christ's sake. But that doesn't mean I have to agree with your theology, and I can be vigorous in disagreement with it. I can disagree with communism and dialectical materialism and as an evil philosophy, but I don't hate communists. I want them to come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. The antagonism the Christian church has toward the cults, and particularly, I might add, to the Moonies and others in our day, is that you are really not honest when you come out and represent yourself in our homes and in our parking lots and with your literature. You imitate our vocabulary. You deliberately call conferences together to give our people the idea that if we talk long about this, a long time, we're going to eventually find out that we all should love each other and we don't have any disagreements. Well, we can talk from now till purgatory freezes over, and our disagreements are there for everybody to see, and they're going to persist because Moonies and Mr. Moon are trying to displace Christianity and the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Do you believe in purgatory?
No, it was just a joke, Doc. You wouldn't want me to swear on camera, would you?
I was going to make a point, too. We've had the Jehovah's Witness leaders and the Mormon leaders here, and they also advocated the fact that it worked. And they called every other religious group on words that we can't repeat now either, but they simply said they were all wrong. Jehovah's Witnesses said that the Christian church is the whore of Babylon, okay? Now, the proof is that it works is they've got 100,000 missionaries out going door to door.
400,000, John.
Excuse me, 400,000. They have 40 million magazines that go out every month. And they say, see, the Mormon church says we now have 5 million members worldwide. See? Now, I hear that same argument here, and I'm saying, okay, all these groups are pointing to fruit that they say shows that they are the true deal. Let's turn it around. Dr. Martin, let me ask you a hard one. What is the proof that Christianity is true? Does it differ?
Yeah, it differs very radically because Jesus Christ said, if you don't believe me for what I say, believe me for the works that I perform. I heal the sick, cleanse the leper, raise the dead. The poor have the gospel preached to them. He sent the gospel out into the world. He was the fulfillment of biblical prophecy step by step. We have prophetic confirmation, historical confirmation, and most important of all, eyewitness testimony. Peter says, we were eyewitnesses of his majesty when he heard the voice of God the Father, this is my beloved Son, the one in whom I am well pleased. Our faith is founded on fact, the revelation of God, and fact. Mr. Moon's faith is founded upon what Mr. Moon says he believes is true. How will I know if Mr. Moon really is a true prophet, whether what he says is accurate? I have to test him by what God has previously told me. If Mr. Moon contradicts what God previously told me, I know he's a false prophet. He does contradict. The church says he's a false prophet. You're welcome to believe in him, but it's not Christianity.
All right, let's take a break right here. We'll come back for a response from you folks. Please stick with us. All right, we're back, and we have representatives of the Unification Church of Sun Myung Moon, as well as representatives of Orthodox Christianity. And Tom, just before the break, we had a response from Dr. Martin on the proof concerning Christianity, why Christ, we believe he is God. Come back on what was said, if you would, please.
Well, how do you prove that someone has a legitimate religious experience or not? That's a totally private thing, and thank goodness that we have the First Amendment to protect that for us. How do you prove that Moses met God on Mount Sinai? How do you prove that someone like Reverend Moon may or may not have had a godly experience with Jesus when he started his ministry? I mean, because that's what we claim, and that's what I wasn't there, I wasn't born yet, but I believe that because of my personal experience in prayer and in my life of faith. I think the ultimate point for me is that you prove it by the fruits. And in this modern day and age, I have to say that as a Christian, that we Christians have a work to do, that somehow we need a renewal in order to do it. The work is to deal with the problem of Marxist-Leninism, whose desire is to have world hegemony, to solve the problem of the family, which is the bedrock of the society, and thirdly, to renew and revitalize and bring together the church. That's what I believe the Unification Church exists for. When Reverend Moon began his work, he did not intend on starting another little church. He wanted to give a movement of renewal, to bring a fire, a spirit, a message to mainline Christianity. Jesus Christ came and brought a message to Judaism. Judaism wasn't able to receive that message. He initiated Christianity.
Okay. Let me ask Dr. Carpenter, you've been sitting patiently listening to this, and as a sociologist and a psychotherapist,
not a sociologist.
Not a sociologist, psychotherapist. You hear a lot of people that have experiences, and wouldn't you agree that before we talk about what the experience is, we can agree people have experiences, but if a person says, I have faith in this chair, well, they can have that experience. We can say, well, fine, you've had a wonderful experience, but their faith is only as valid as the object that it's placed in.
That's right. And if they sit on the chair and it holds them up, their faith is substantial.
And if the legs break,
the chair is.
That's right. And if it's not, then they have a problem.
Still had faith
so we have to
the
test the object, don't we?
Right.
What would you say about the object? In other words, what again is the proof besides the fact we've had experiences? Because a person could be deceived, especially if there's a person called Satan that dresses up as an angel of light. We have to know data at that point.
Well, you're talking specifically in the Christian vein.
Yeah, I threw in a theological interpretation at that point, but because we're talking in a theological realm here, we've got to say there are other possibilities so people could be deceived even theologically.
Well, you know, when you get into that kind of minutia, if you're looking at it from simply a Christian perspective, then we have the tradition that we check out experience against.
Yeah, that goes back to Christ.
The whole stream of the Judeo-Christian heritage. Of course, there are times, I'm sure, when it would be very obvious without checking tradition that an individual's into some kind of a psychosis, out of touch with reality. But then when you move back over into the religious realm, and I'll use the word religious,